Hello, everyone. We're back. It's a Friday or whenever this drops. I've had one of the worst weeks in several years, but that's okay. I'm here, and Elliott rejoins us. Elliott, you're back. You
I'm
have
back.
hopefully had a much better week than I've had.
I actually
Um,
have.
that's good.
Yep,
That is a white pill.
exactly.
Um, it's a white pill. It's so white. Um, Speaking of black and white and various colors and how we are doing, I know that last time we had you on to talk about the Masons, and now that I've said it, we're going to get
Hmm.
another warning on our YouTube video.
That's
Um,
great.
Everyone should check out the Masonic video, which is our most recent one. But I wanted to have you on, and you're kind enough to come on to do sort of a follow-up to our Starman Star People episode
Mhm.
from however many months ago that was, sometime in this late late winter, I want to say. Um, so we had you laid out. I didn't do anything. I was just the kid in the room asking questions, and I will be that again today. In this previous episode, which I'll link to in the description, Elliot laid out his sort of basic schema of
Mhm.
um various spheres, I guess you would say, to use a more medieval term, of influence. Sort of, I think we called it schizoastrology, something like that. Not worrying so much on which individual kind of star system is present at different times, but more of like which one of the spheres influences you most, something like that. Um, I thought I would bring you back on to try to, and there's no guarantee this will be a success, and I'm not even necessarily needing it to be a success, to see if we could maybe harmonize this with sort of the classical four humors, for temperaments, system. This may or may not work, but I figured that there were four spheres that you laid out for us last time. So, and there's four humors. Maybe there's a correspondence. I don't know. So I guess just so that people do not, I mean, I would recommend going back and listening to us talk the previous episode or two episodes ago about the system. But Elliot, if you want to spend like 5 minutes or so, you want to just lay it out again for people so they don't have to if they don't have time.
Yeah, sure. I could do a brief version. The brief version is that um, I was thinking about a way of um, basically cataloging why it seems, esoterically speaking, anyway, um, you know, Islamic and Jewish and East Asian folks tend to be relatively comfortable under Christian regimes, but not the other way around. And I'm boiling it down in part to the metaphysically being sun and moon people. Um, the sun uh, lines up both with the calendar and with Christ being a son, right? And a kind of brilliant figure, so to speak, and the other ones
The son
having
of righteousness, dare we say.
absolutely right. And being kind of glorious versus the other ones having a little bit more of a muted, bit more cyclical view of the world. The Quran is highly cyclical, right? If you've ever read it, it's almost like ridiculously repetitive. I'm sure it's better in Arabic. It's really rough in English, in my opinion. But anyway, point being is that um, so there's a calendrical system as well, right? And that's why I call, the folks the moon people and the sun people. Now, of course, it's not perfect moon people, right? In terms of like nobody uses a strictly lunar calendar, it's lunar solar, but they are more month based in their liturgical calendar, and we are more year based in our
Yeah.
liturgical calendar, which corresponds moon and sun. And then, you know, Colin asked me, hey, which of the two are you? I'm like, I'm a star people. Which Colin was very amused by. And it's like, no, I take the sidereal calendar view. I'm like more cosmic, right? Not to be hippy dippy about it or whatever, but it's like, no, actually I'm more interested in the more stellar perspective on the Earth. And star people tend not to think in terms so much of the sun or moon calendars. They tend to be a little bit more woo in those ways, sort of eternal perspective, maybe. Um, and then the Earth people are kind of, you want to think Vikings or neo pagans. They're charting the seasons directly off of sun go up, sun go down, sun is hot, sun is cold, those sorts of things. Calendars are optional for
Yeah,
Earth people.
and if anyone follows me on Twitter, not that you have to, you will see that this week I absolutely on purpose drop kicked the Wignat neo-pagan hornet's nest on Twitter in a way that was I thought was fun. It made me feel good and really pissed some people off. Nothing worse than telling a Norse neo-pagan that their writing system comes from Semitic peoples, which is true.
Oh,
They
that's
they
hilarious.
tend
Oh,
to
just by the
lose their
Phoenician alphabet?
minds. What's that?
Is it because of Phoenician alphabet?
Runic, yeah, it
Or
comes from
yeah,
Phoenician.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's Phoenician in the end.
Get
So
wrecked.
yeah, their mystic runes are just as Semitic as some other unnamed groups of people, let's say, which was really fun to do. And
That's super funny.
it's a little bit of an aside, but as I think I tweeted and I'll put it up here, I learned that the Wignats are probably actually Whignats in the sense of the Whig understanding of history, which is very so I learned something. Yeah. In any case, they're very earthy people, and as such, I was making
Yeah.
solar arguments that they literally could not pick up, and or let's say they'd taste them and spit them out because that was too
Hmm.
bright and hot, right? They wanted something
Hmm.
dirty. They wanted to lick the earth, let's say.
Exactly.
So they
Earth
wanted to lick
flickers.
the dust, like dogs, one could say. Now, um, I wish him the best of luck. Go have fun with Thor. I hear he's really flashy. Yeah, no, but it came to my mind as I was just trolling, that I was like, wow, yeah, Earth people cannot handle a solar argument.
Hmm.
And this is all counterfactual, but I was trying to imagine myself getting in a similar kind of argument with, let's say, maybe more of a I don't know, some sort of different kind of pagan, not a Norse neo-pagan, but somebody a little bit more like, maybe like a reconstructed Egyptian, those
Sure.
solar deity, Akhenaten kind of sort of ish. I feel like I would disagree with them, but they would have at least understood what I meant. Whereas dealing with the Norse neo-pagans, they were so clearly Earth people. They literally weren't understanding what I was saying, and they just called me the big J word over and over again, which was very funny.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
that's
So,
very funny. Yeah.
it's funny because the reconstructed Egyptian folks, I would say, tend to be star people or
Yeah.
moon people, but
Okay.
typically
Yeah.
star
Right.
people on
Yeah. Yeah.
average. Yeah, yeah,
But it's
yeah.
up in the sky, right? So like we're all different, but we're all up in the sky. Whereas the Earth people they're not.
No, they're having no disconnect. They're extremely literal, right? I found it's kind of funny actually. I sent you a columnist thing, not to be wildly off topic immediately, but
That's fine.
I sent you this thing about how Americans can't read again. But one of the issues is that they were having troubles not just parsing Dickens, but also recognizing when metaphor was being applied. So
Yeah.
they all, like, in the first couple of chapters, he's like a megalodon, would have galumped up a elephantine, hill or whatever. And they're like, okay, so there's a there's a dinosaur and its bones, or wait, no, it's going up a hill. That's an elephant. And you're like, oh wow, no wonder nobody understands anything, because if you can't handle metaphor, like gosh, you're toast.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you can't handle metaphor, you can't handle higher levels of language, which does actually, I think, say something about perhaps the
You-
state of America. We will leave that for another day. That hanging
yes.
Chad there. That's a definitely a dangling. That's a dangling Chad ready to drop off in the toilet. That's a.
That's
It's a hanger on.
it might be a depressed Chad. You never know.
It is. Yeah. It's well, it's a melancholic Chad.
Oh, there you go. Nice,
There's the
nice,
connection.
beautiful,
There's the
beautiful.
there's the shimmy. Yeah. Um, so your four realms, or I don't know, spheres. I think spheres is probably the better term for the four
Sure.
spheres. Yeah, because Earth is a sphere as well, right? Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
and we have things like spheres of influence. This is something now that it only really means political, but in the older era, not that long ago, spheres of influence had more to do with all kinds of influences. Um, so I think it's
Since they're cylindrical, it makes sense.
I think you diagnosed me as a sun person, a sun
Yes.
people. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think I agree with that.
Yeah.
Although I had no choice in the matter. It was just how I was born. I was born this way.
Yep.
I didn't choose to be a solar person, okay? I was born this way. And my blood enemies are the earth people. What? No.
Actually,
Yeah,
though.
might actually be. So I think we were just throwing around some ideas of trying to match this up just for fun. But who knows, right? Half the time me and Elliot do this stuff for fun, we actually hit on something profound. Half the time. This we'll see. Flip a coin. 1d2 chance we get this right. Um,
Mhm.
so for the four humors, we just do a quick rundown of this for people who aren't versed in this, and that is totally fine if you're not versed in this. Might I put in a plug, Elliot, right now?
Yeah, go
Right
for
now,
it.
if anyone is yes, Amazon has, let's say, issues, but if you're an audible person, as I am, right now, the book by C.S. Lewis, The Discarded Image, is streaming for free on Amazon. You do not need to read the whole thing, although if you're interested at all in the Middle Ages, I would recommend it. It doesn't really have so much to do with the Middle Ages, but about the Middle Age mindset of how the world worked, and how everything connected or didn't quite totally connect together. Chapter
Mhm.
5 of this work by Lewis is called The Heavens. Go onto Audible or however you find the book, listen or read that chapter. The heavens will I We did all this stuff last time and I confess I hadn't read it yet, so I read it and that chapter totally lined up with what we were talking about. So Elliot Lewis is standing with us, I think. He's interceding on our behalf here. So hopefully
Uh,
we're following the
May
correct
St. Louis
logos. Yeah.
guide our mouths to speak.
Yes. Um, so so the four humors are
Mhm.
were very much a thing coming from classical Greece, into the through the Romans and then into the medieval West. They are interpreted differently in the Islamic East, and that is something that we don't have time to really get into, I think, today, nor am I an expert on that. So, speaking purely from a Western standpoint, as I am a man of the West, and that is okay. There are four the way so there's four humors. There is sort of the what is it? Black bile, phlegm, blood, and yellow bile. So those are their physical manifestations. Um, these would be called melancholic, phlegmatic, sanguine, and choleric. They correspond to the four classical elements as well: earth, water, air, fire. They also have fun supposed like sources in your body, which is fun. So there's the spleen, and Elliot and I have done a whole schizo analysis of Mystery Men. So I thought of the spleen. Spleen is where you get the black bile from if you're melancholic. The lungs are where you get the phlegm from if you're phlegmatic. Now that makes sense if you've ever had a chest cold, or the coof. Um, Marrow, blood, that is also pretty like that follows actually, right? So if you're sanguine, you have you're sanguineous, you have sangre in you, you have blood in you. That comes to your marrow, or makes sense. And then yellow bile, I kind of a liver and or gallbladder. That kind of makes sense too, right? If you're imagining pre-modern peoples cutting open either animals and or doing post-mortems on human bodies, seeing, oh, look at like where this stuff is coming from, right? When I cut into the gallbladder, I see yellow bile. This is the choleric fire. That's sort of the classical system. Obviously this is not how modern medicine works, and I would say I don't think we're trying to make a case that this should be how we should view things medically, but I do think, and I think Elliot, you would agree with me, that there's something. I mean, as Lewis would say, this earlier image of the world has been discarded, but it can be, um, I don't want to say resynthesized. That sounds very Hegelian. It can be recovered in a way that works with a more modern understanding of how the world occurs. I think that earlier system might not always literally be true, but let us remind everyone that only Earth people take things literally,
That's so true.
and that it can be quite true nonetheless, even if it's not literally true. So just going through these, I guess in order. They also had, sorry, they had a hot, and there's a temperature and like a moisture factor to all of
Yeah.
these.
That
Um,
refers to the classical four Greek elements, and I'll post that in our chat now that I think about it.
yeah, so if you were melancholic, you were of so in the classical elements, you are of the earth. Am I reading that correctly here? Yes. Yeah, melancholic earth. And that is cold and dry. Um, uh, at least in most interpretations. So cold and dry. If you were phlegmatic, sorry, I wrote this down in a slightly different order, which is my fault. Then you were corresponding to water. You're a real blue mana kind of deck person. You really like to play with the color blue. You like to return cards to people's
Hmm.
hands, things like that. You were cold and
Hmm.
wet. Makes sense. Water is cold and wet. Water is the essence of wetness, things like that. If you were sanguine, which I am not as sanguine as a personality, I don't even know what it's like to be sanguine. I don't think I've had a sanguine moment in my life. Um, you were corresponding to the air, and you were hot and wet as the air can be. And then lastly, but not leastly, if you got that fire in you, if you were choleric, or choleric probably is the better pronunciation, you were corresponding to fire, and fire is hot and dry. So I believe I've said that correctly. Um, so that's sort of the classical four elements mapped onto the four humors mapped onto sort of both physical and mental, and let's say also spiritual health. Like human bodies were viewed more in their holistic sense, and not like we weren't just, meat bags walking around. Um, so
So that's a major reason why the atheists continue to invoke meatbag a million
yes.
gajillion times.
Yeah, well, I'm just a teenage meat bag baby, like you. Who, no one's a meat bag. If you're not a meat bag. You're a human being, and we love you. We do. You matter. God loves you too. He didn't just make meat bags. That's ridiculous. Only a retard would say that. Okay. So mapping this onto, well, again, this is where maybe Elliot, do you have refinements? Did I make a mistake before we try to map this onto your star system?
No, I don't think it did. What I would say is just that one of the things that we've been so disembodied, right? And we talk about this actually other places
Disembodied,
where we're
disenchanted, it goes hand in
disorientated,
hand. Yeah.
right? We're very dissed all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And the word for humor, like, oh, they have a good sense of humor, literally comes from this,
Yeah.
not this system, but that's what that word originally referred to, is that your humors are in balance, right?
Yep.
And when you think about people who are funny, that is sometimes true, right? Like they got a good perspective on the universe, so to speak, right? So
A lot of the
anyhow,
funniest people though are very like sad people though too, which is I'm kind of like, yeah, I guess there's different types of humor out there, I guess. Different strokes for different folks, I guess, on that. Um, yeah, I think it just depends. It just
yes,
depends.
yes.
So again, we were doing this a little bit in chat, but let's do it live right here. So everyone who watches this, you know what you're getting into. It's a ramble fest. This is going to be us working things out in real time. So bear with us. Elliot, I don't know, I don't have strong opinions about this, but let's just start with, let's just go by by the order that I've established for the purposes of this episode. Melancholic. How
It's a good place to start. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a melancholic person. What would I correspond to in your schizoastrology system? Now, according
Uh,
to the classical elements, that's a Earth, but and maybe that's what
yeah.
maybe I'm just a closeted Earth person. I mean, I don't know, but
No,
I don't think
it's
it's a
it's
map.
so hard. Like I've been going back and forth obviously in chat on this one, right? Like when I've read because you have the colorful diagram on the Wikipedia, and when I read like the you know uh different publishers use different names, like when I read the different names, right? And I saw like particularly like fire or the Ader, right? The Ader, or is it Alder? And
Alders, I think. Yeah,
they say choleric fire is ruling. I mean, that's clearly a sun to me, right?
yeah,
And then the then the melancholic earth leaning. That one makes sense for me as it's earth, given the colorful chart, right? Because essentially, the warm and dry, or the cold and dry, that's a very classical earth thing, and I feel like earth people could potentially fit that as well. Again, just super vague, like hippy hippie stuff here. But then I run into this immediate problem with air and water, right? Because I see water is schizoid, right, and has to do with the phlegm and lungs, and is avoiding, which, wow, that sounds awfully star people to me, right? And then I
Yeah,
read the air, and it's socially useful, hysterical, right? Influencing, spreading.
yeah,
That's pretty moon, people. So it kind of brings up, like, what are those things? And this is true for the ancients as well. That you know, even with ancient Greeks, not all systems have a clean nominal mapping back and
right.
forth, is maybe what we'll
Well,
say, right?
and we don't want to be, as our as good friend of the show, Pause would say, we don't want to be science cucked about this. We don't need to
Mm-hmm.
have a clean
Mm-hmm.
system. So
Yep.
maybe can I suggest an option for us moving
Y-
forward?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's temporarily
Mm-hmm.
temporarily throw the old system out, the old
Yep.
names out, and let's
Yep.
stick with the hot, cold, wet, dry.
Yes,
And let's try
exactly.
to
Right.
assign your system of Earth, Moon, Sun, stars to hot, cold, wet, dry. Do you want to do
Yep.
that?
And so in the classical Greek system, there's sort of two temperatures, right, and two states of matter, right? And remember that these states of matter, the fire, air, earth, water, literally the Greeks were under the impression that things were made out of this, right? Like this is the material out of which everything was made. Um, from a biblical perspective, it's not even all that crazy, honestly, though, when you think about it, right? Because we have the waters, and the
Yep.
waters are divided from the waters to reveal the earth,
Earth.
and the
Yeah.
noumena,
Yeah.
right, is above the waters, and we're
Hmm.
separating the airs, and so it's not crazy, right? But essentially, you got the hot, dry, wet, cold, right? And so fire is obviously dry and hot. Earth is dry and cold. Water is cold and wet, and air is wet and hot, right? Kind of actually makes some sense, eh? Um, so Sun people being hot and dry, I think makes sense, right?
Okay.
Not too much there.
Yeah.
Um, earthy people being dry and cold. I mean, that's a little bit trickier. I mean, I feel like earthy people are kind of wet. If I was just, again, pure vibe coding right now.
Okay.
But
So let's
that's,
start. Let's
yeah,
start from the Earth and head out in
yeah,
true
that's
medieval
fair.
fashion. Let's start
Yes,
from
absolutely.
let's follow gravity.
Yeah,
Up.
right. Which
Yeah.
which by the way is melancholic. So I think Earth and melancholic and gravity, like that tends to make sense, right? Because they're grounded. They're
Gravitas, one
not
could say. You have gravitas.
exactly
Heyo.
exactly right.
Hey,
Um
you're kind of heavy. It's kind of a heavy guy. It really kind of takes. Um.
right.
Yeah.
No, no, 100%, right? But yeah, like it's just so challenging, right? Because again, I
Okay.
get
So
caught up
let,
on
let,
the water and air, except for the following thing, right? Okay. So if I instead switch from, like, because what I've been doing previously with the air, water, earth, with the stars and the moon and everything is kind of one direction. But actually, if I stack them in the following way: earth, moon, stars, sun, right? If I stack them like that, and I use the Greek elements of earth, air, water, fire, this actually lines up pretty well with the Kabbalistic tree of life stacking, right? And it's not necessarily crazy from a cosmological perspective, especially if the sun is the sun, right? The highest good, to rank these in these order: earth, moon, stars, and sun, and along with earth, air, water, and fire, being kind of the way. Because we see with the kabbalistic one, you'd think water, from bottom to top, you'd think that with the tree of life, earth is clearly the most concrete, it's the most here, and then you'd think water, but actually air comes next, in that, which is the mental energies, right? The
right.
mental kind of
So
faculties of
if
human,
I can
and the
jump in
water is
because
the
I am
emotional. Yeah, go ahead.
So would then, because I am not, you know a lot more about, we've now left
Sure,
my
sure, sure. No,
my
no,
area
you're
of
good, you're good.
expertise.
Yep, yep.
Um, and I think maybe just if I can be the voice
Yeah,
of
feel
the
free.
audience as well for two
Feel
seconds.
free.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yep.
You're doing the
Yep.
star thing, which is great, but hold on a second. Um, yeah. So Earth being Earth, of
Hmm.
course, being so we'll say under our system or under your system, I'm not going to take ownership.
Yep.
Under
Oh,
your
no, no.
system, Earth would be cold and wet, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so then we would have next would be moon,
Yeah. If I
and
had,
moon is
yeah, and
like
I would,
air.
oh man, wait, Earth people. Who are Earth people like? They are, I think that they're, yeah, so we already addressed them, sorry. And then if we go to the moon people, I think moon people are wet. Oh
Okay.
man, it's so hard. I don't, I'm just really struggling here
Well, I
because
had an
I don't.
idea. I
You
had an
go, go
idea.
ahead. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
so this is
yeah.
my idea, and this is not needs to
Yep.
not be the idea, but Earth, melancholic, cold. I had cold and dry actually.
Okay.
Uh, wait, let me see. Did I do this right? Goodness gracious. Sorry, folks. You're putting up with us. One second here.
Which
Uh,
actually would be right on so far, right?
yeah, yeah. Where did I put that? I wrote that down somewhere. Oh well. I will edit this out or not. I probably will not. I had some ideas here. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess Earth being cold and wet might make sense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I tend to think of the moon though as being very kind of cold and wet. I think the moon
Yeah.
is cold and
That's not crazy.
wet.
Yep.
Um, because it kind of I don't know. I don't know why that's conjuring to my mind, but so we could say Earth cold and dry, moon cold and wet, sun
Hmm.
hot and dry, and stars. Oh, see, that's the thing is stars are hot and yeah. See, this maybe
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is where the
right.
system starts
Yeah.
breaking down, and that's fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine. I don't know. Can you think of a way that we could recover this? Not that we have to. This is literally just a thought experiment on a Friday, but I mean, or I could say, does this give you some insights into refining or change? Does this change? Does thinking about this change your system at all? Or I mean, I guess that you would just be running on like a different. It's just that you're Linux or something like that. You're just running on a different kind of.
No, so I think the system maybe more or less works if we go with and again doing no research here whatsoever, this aiders, right? So on that, it says the relation of various four temperament theories, right? There's the alder, right? And if I kind of go off that, or the alder and Riemann, right? Because the Riemann one is the one that most made sense to me with respect to the
Let's read
system
that.
I've got,
Let's
right?
read that
Yep, go
aloud
ahead.
here. So
Yep, go ahead.
Riemann has for melancholic depressed. For phlegmatic, he has schizoid. For sanguine, he has hysterical. And for choleric, he has obsessive. This is on the Wikipedia article, which I will link to in the description.
Very deep research.
Very
Well
deep.
researched.
Well, the problem is you kind of can't go too deep into the research because
Yeah,
what Elliott's
it's all
doing here is
Latin.
not really the classical. We're riffing on the classical system, but
That is true.
yeah, um,
So if I
yeah,
go off the Riemann system, right, and just kind of implicitly assume that that is right, you know, depressed and Earth makes sense, right? You're kind of close to Earth, obsessive and Sun, right? I mean that to me makes a lot of sense. And the schizoid for star people and hysterical for moon people, all that makes sense to me, and so that's
yeah.
why,
I mean,
yeah,
and if the if if the hysterical for moon people is tied to the air, um,
yep,
I guess that works for the moon, right? For like I guess we could make that work. Schizoid for the stars makes a lot of sense to me, having gotten to know you over several years.
yeah, right,
But I don't know. See, yeah, and then that would be, I guess, theoretically connected to water. I'm stars and water. I guess it makes
yeah.
sense. I mean, I could roll with
It's
that. Like
it's the
Milky,
waters of heaven or
it's
something,
watery.
right?
like the stars flow across the sky, I guess you could say, right? Like as the
Hmm.
constellations move, they kind of have a stream of stars, a star stream. I could buy that.
Yeah.
That maybe so maybe Riemann is pulling this out for us here at the end here.
Hmm.
So I guess so you are a star pupil.
Hmm.
So that would mean that you are sanguine, according to this. Do you feel like that's accurate? Do you feel like you are a sanguine
Yeah,
person?
I don't even like I keep reading because I looked into this quite a while ago, right? And sanguine was one of the ones that just didn't make an awful lot of sense to me at that time. But let's see here.
Well, you have a
Uh
lot of influence and you are an inspiring person, I think.
well, right. And so that does make sense with the with that, you know what I mean?
You're very
So
socially useful.
I know, right?
That's
That
just
also is like
okay.
odd. I don't know what
Yeah,
that
socially
means. That's
useful. Yeah.
like, yeah, I could. Oh no, that's a moon person actually. Mine
Oh,
is
that's a moon
avoiding.
person.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Who?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
so
yeah.
wait, no, you would be sorry. We've read you'd be phlegmatic. Uh
Phlegmatic. Yeah, yeah.
you'd be phlegmatic. Yeah, and I think this is
Yeah.
where maybe something breaks down a little bit. I mean, let's you are definitely schizoid though. And so I think
Well,
you're
so this is kind of actually, if we take a step back, the humor system with like the phlegm, blood, bile thing, you know, I have never really like. There's a lot of ancient systems that obviously I feel fit like a glove, even from our modern times. It's like, wow, they really tapped into something. You know, the four humor system with the blood and the phlegm and the bile, it just has never really clicked with me. You know what I mean? Like I just have never quite understood what. I didn't ever see a pattern behind it, I guess is what I'm saying, right?
well,
And
so
every time I look at it again, go ahead.
maybe well, I was gonna say maybe your spheric system is the superior model.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. For me, I guess I don't know. I feel like I'm a melancholic person, but but again, I guess I have a similar issue in that I'm like, okay, I'm melancholic. I mean, in some ways I buy that, but then under your system, I would be very much of a star, not a star, sorry, a sun person. And
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
I
yeah.
buy that too, but see, that would not jive. Those things
Yeah.
do not
You'd be an
jive.
earth person if you were under this
Yeah.
system, right?
And
Yeah.
as we've pointed out, I like to get in fights with Earth people for fun. I'll start fights with Earth people because it's so fun.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just like a depressive choleric person. Maybe I just am like, I don't know, a converted Earth person or something like that. Like the sun came into my life, something like that, and I started not looking just down at the ground all the time, and maybe started looking up a little bit, or I don't know. We could make all sorts of theologically poetic statements about that. Maybe that's what I am. And maybe I just like to pick fights with my former self in a way. I don't know. We might be forcing it. We probably are, but I don't know. I think a sun person makes sense for me. You're definitely a star people. Um, I don't
You
know.
know, it's did you know that I'm doing a little bit of like literally on the show research over here
This is what we
about the
do. We
humors,
do
right?
this. We do on the
And
show
it's like
research.
it says each of the humors corresponds to one of the traditional four temperaments. Um, and then in classic unhelpful style does not give that pairing. It just links to the four. Oh, okay. No, maybe that no. Oh, never mind. We're talking about those temperaments right now. It's not the
Yeah.
I was thinking the four gosh, the four virtues, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, assuming some people are choleric and are fire people, I mean, I am very obsessive, incredibly obsessive. I think perhaps my melancholy comes from being so obsessive. I think that's probably true. So maybe this is why, again, the system doesn't need to be perfect, but on the fly, folks, if anyone's still listening, God bless you. On the fly, I'm realizing that maybe this is why I love to pick fights with the Earth people because they make me so freaking depressed all the time dealing with them. And maybe
Right.
right, like I'm like I can't
Maybe
do
they
like
give you the depression.
yeah, like I obsess over them because they're driving me crazy, and then I start like feeling like they've got me a little bit, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting down. I'm like an Earth person. You can't be an Earth person. Um, they're dirty. So they're very dirty earth people. Not like the bright sun. makes you orange. You know, I don't know. I think of Trump as very sanguine, but maybe he has a little bit of maybe he's got that he does have that fire in him, you know. So I don't know. But yeah, no, fire is being obsessive, sun is being obsessive. I could see that. Lots of maybe
Yeah. No,
too
no,
much
that, yeah.
energy, you know, too much brightness. Whoa, turn it down a little
Yep.
bit. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Um, yep. I mean, it is very stereotypical, I guess, to say my wife is a moon person. I'm not saying that, you know, there can be male moon people and female like sun people. That's totally normal. Star people can be whatever. I don't know. You have some sort of like weird alien gender or something like that out there. I don't know what you are. Uh,
No, it
but
would
it makes
be
sense. My wife's very much of a moon person, and she balances out my sun energy. I got way too much, right?
hmm
Way too much.
hmm
She's very kind of like, hey, it'll come in cycles, right? It'll pass and then it'll come back again. Just keep waiting, right? Like she's very much like this. So that would make sense. And if she were a moon person, again, she would be, I guess, are we saying here
like
sanguine?
she would be air sanguine, yeah.
Yeah, she'd be air, which is, you know, that's yeah, that makes sense. You know, she's sort of like she has, you know, I don't know though. I mean, maybe the moon is water. I feel like if we're gonna go by that, at least for my wife would be she's very conscientious, right? She's very conscientious. Um,
hmm
Perhaps the moon is really is wet like water. And
Yeah, the moon
that
being
would
wet
then
is
make
pretty
the
classic.
stars air, which does make sense, I think, right? Maybe we're figuring this out. This,
I don't know, man.
but look at the like influence and inspiring, right? Like you definitely influence people. Like
No, no, but but we
you,
were
so
oh,
like
you're trying to say that okay, so you're
celestial
trying to say that it's
influences. I
air
mean, in the real sense of like you spread ideas,
influence
right? Like
inspiring.
yeah,
Yeah.
you are I mean, ignore the bit about hysterical. I don't think that let's ignore Riemann
Yeah,
for
I don't
two
know what that
seconds.
one
Yeah,
yells.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but I mean, you're up as high as you can go, right?
Yeah.
You're up in the air, and
Avoiding makes sense to me
and
too,
again,
yeah.
ignore the modern cosmological model. The air is
Well, but this
higher than the sun. The air is higher than the sun, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
the
yeah.
sun goes down and the air is still there, right? So if you
hmm
think about it from
hmm
that, so again, everyone check out C.S. Lewis' Discarded Image. It's helping me right now. So
Oh, is this from the discarded image then?
it's inspiring this at least. So the air is actually
Okay, okay.
above the sun. So you can go above the sun, right? Which is to the stars, but the
Mm,
stars are seen as part of the air, right?
hmm.
In this astral sense of air. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
and so yeah, and you I mean ignore the bit here too about avoiding. I think the way we a more charitable interpretation of this would be is that you're sort of more behind the scenes, right? So
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
influencing from behind. So star people influence from behind the scenes, very much like a hey, have you considered, and then walking away and letting people just like discuss it. Fire people, sun people like me, very much want to go be obsessive and deal with the problem, maybe a little too much, often a little too much. That's been my problem this week. Too much dealing with the problem. The problem won't always be fixed by that, but you know, you definitely want to go and you want to like tease out every single individual aspect of it and look at it and under the bright light of the sun, right? Sunlight is the best disinfectant, all these things that we say. Very, very sunny. Moon people, moon people are you know, they're not as bright, but they emit light. I don't mean they're not as intelligent. They don't have such a obsessive energy all the time, but they're there, right? And the moon in its own way, each of these spheres does have influence, right? Like it does it make people do something. The moon is there, it controls the water, controls the tides. You know, it pulls things, but through maybe through not so direct means. And then the earth is just sort of there as the ground foundation. And I know I've spent the whole episode here dissing on earth people, not necessarily, right? I think there can be decent earth people. Um,
Yeah, they make the world go round.
they make the world go round, right? They just want things to kind of fucking work. That's how I would say, right? They're just there, and it's you know, yeah. Riemann says depressed, steadiness supportive, right? Like steadiness supportive. And I think as we talked about last time, I would say again, this is your system. I'm just riffing on it. It's your
No,
world,
no,
Elliot. I'm just living in it. The you know, each of these each of the four spheres can go wrong, right? As is wont in a world that has fallen, and is chaotic often, right? Like so, like Earth people, obviously, you can become so locked in your own little world you can't see anything behind it. Which is neo-pagans people can't understand the origin of their own freaking writing system. Fine. Right. To call it my own camp, sun people can get way too hot, can get way too hot and think they're right all the time, even when we're not. Moon people can be kind of temperamental in their own way, right? They can kind of like pull away from you, right? And kind of come back and they pull away again. They kind of tease you. Will they, won't they? Will the moon person do the thing? Will they won't do the thing, right? That kind of is can be maddening. Maybe that's just as a sun person. And star people, right? Like star people either can kind of get the constellations a little wrong and maybe start making a plan that is actually not so
Hmm.
good. I would say that there you can just
Hmm.
get so literally far out there,
Yeah.
really as the highest airy,
Yep.
I can say airy fairy, but way
Harry
out
Ferry is a great way
in
to put
the
it.
in the airy regions, and so much so that when you try to talk to them, they don't make sense anymore, and
Yeah, they're too alien. Yeah.
they're too alien. And I think, as we said last time, maybe one of the reasons why your and my collaboration and friendship works is because, I mean, a sun is a star, but
Hmm.
it's the star for this place that we live in. And
Hmm.
so I'm like, yeah, I mean, like I'm kind of a star, and you're like multiple stars, so I can kind of understand a little bit of that like starness, but I exert like a lot of gravitational pull in this area, whereas you're like looking at the entire universe, right? Or let's say the entire galaxy, how stars are moving all around us. And so I can vibe with you to a certain extent. Obviously, I can't go as far as you can go, but then I think oftentimes, even in our conversations with IRL people, and maybe hopefully you'll agree with me on this, Elliot. Sometimes you will literally say a thing that is so starry, that is so astral, that people will look at you like, what? And the people who've gotten to know us will then look to me for the translation into the more lunar or terrestrial, which is like, I think what he means to say is, and so I think, again,
You know, like, because the problem is that people IRL, because I didn't start, and I told you this was going to be true. I'm like, I don't usually start completely nuts out of the gate, right? Like, I give them, I kind of ease them in a bit. And then the more they start digging in, the more like, oh, that was a cool thought. Oh, that was a cool thought. And eventually I'm like, okay, you're getting full blast. And they're like, well, now I actually don't know what you're talking about anymore. It's just
yeah,
kind of like, because the problem is that like when you've got this sort of language, and this is really just true for all these systems, and ultimately, honestly, the whole reason why I started looking into any of this stuff to begin with, right? The whole point of this is that once you have the kind of, you call it a twinning language, Colin, once you
yeah,
have this like deeply integrated, woven together language that is, in some ways less disconnected than our language. Oh, we have a lot of extremely precise words nowadays that don't really have as many. We talk about poetry as being the medium by which words have kind of mushy interrelations, and it's not always hyper precise what the meanings are. Just take it poetically, man. You get the gist. Like, that's what essentially all of these models back in the day, all of these sort of systems of ways of viewing the universe and knitting it together, and these words like that would be used around town, and it's connecting deeply many different things that seem to have kind of qualities, right? So it's a whole network of extremely rich connection. We talk about things being connected nowadays, like, oh yeah, and that they're atoms, and you have physics and all these things, but it's almost like it's missing so much of the structure. So anyway, that's the fun thing about thinking through these things, right? Is that even when they don't always gel point by point, they were doing stuff like this too. You can kind of see the development throughout history of how these systems got refined down. So anyhow,
for
Colin,
sure.
that's kind of my monologue there.
I appreciate it. So if we can attempt to, since we're figuring this out on the fly, if we
Hmm.
can I'm gonna lay out my idea. This I'm
Hmm.
literally gonna shoehorn the humoric
Go ahead. Go
system
ahead. We're
into
gonna make it
into
work.
your
We're
system, and
gonna
this will
box it
probably.
up.
But
We're
let's
gonna
try to
box
do
it
it.
up.
Let's just do it. It'll work. Yeah, just squeeze it in there a little bit tighter. It doesn't fit right. That's okay. It'll run. Turn it over. Yeah. All right. Um, it's like Johnny Cash's one piece at a time. This is we'll see if this engine starts. Okay,
Yes.
so
Yes.
melancholic Earth. I think that it makes perfect sense. I think that was never an issue.
Yep. Yep.
Um, I think we're saying to go to reorder these a little bit.
Mhm.
We're gonna go phlegmatic, um, water, moon. I would say. I would go. Then we'll again flipping the order a little bit. Choleric, fire, sun, and then sanguine, air, stars. I think that actually sort of does work. Assuming that air is above the sun, but stars are above the sun, and the stars must be in the sky, so they're part of the air. And that I think that drawing on a little bit of Lewis's work on the Middle Age, the medieval model for the universe, or at least for our the universe that relates to humans on planet Earth makes a lot of sense with that. So I don't, does that jive? Can you put a stamp on that? Are you okay with that? You don't have to be, but that's how I would shoehorn that in there. It actually kind of works.
Yeah, because well, that's too is like uh, what am I trying to say? There's a lot of context, right? Especially when you start thinking um, about like say astrology, right? Astrology terms, for instance, are extremely overloaded, right? Like different systems treat the planets in quite different ways, right?
Well said.
And
Yeah.
it's all the same stars, right? It's all the same beats though too. So sometimes there just really is context to be had. You can't just be like, okay, I see this word and it means this. It's like, no, no, you got to actually understand where that word come from, what they're using it for. And it requires a certain more familiarity with the text than just reading it directly off the page. You know what I mean?
Yeah, can I throw one little wrench your way at the very end here?
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
So we're gonna have to completely temporarily ignore the traditional
Yep,
element association.
yep,
Let's do
yep.
Colors of Magic: The Gathering.
Okay, I love it. Yep, yep, that's great.
Melancholic Earth people, what are they? I want to say green. I want to
It
say
could be.
green.
Could we do two color, or
You
is
could
it
do
just got to
two,
be one?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Because
here we go. It gets more
yeah, yeah.
complex.
See, it's
Yeah,
kind of fun, right? Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Because I think that you could do for Earth people, you could do a fair few actually. So I think if you did green black, that would make sense.
Okay.
Kind of like a very swampy, very very earthy, right? Green black. I'd say maybe
Drain this
plains,
swamp.
right? So
It's a
white.
melancholic swamp. Drain it.
So I could see Earth people being white mana.
Yeah, depending. Yeah.
Yep, depending, right? It's kind of two different versions of Earth people.
What about let's go one step above the Earth to the
Sure.
moon,
Okay.
which is they have lots of phlegm, the phlegmatics. So water, I mean,
Hmm.
there's some blueness to that, but
Then there's a what? Yep.
I don't know the moon blue or more white. I think of that as a more white or white blue.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, I see what you're saying. Like a kind of a structured. What's interesting is that red mana tends to be the more um it tends to be the more emotional, emotive,
Right.
right? So I wonder if
Well, red
uh
being choleric would make a lot of sense.
yeah, definitely.
You know,
Right, right.
you always summon with haste, right? You can attack. There's no summoning sickness. Yeah.
Maybe the moon could be uh red black mana. You know what I
Oh,
mean? Just
red
like
black.
very
Yeah.
that's very aggressive, isn't it? It's kind of a
You could do
almost a
like a
sunnier.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you could do
Mhm.
like a red black vampire deck or something. That's very moony. right? Got
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
There you go. There
yeah.
you go.
I don't know.
Yep, yep, yep.
This
That could
this
work.
this
That could work.
this is my this tells you can learn a lot about the last time I really did some Magic the Gathering because I'm like I don't know all the the new ones, but yeah, like oh yeah, like vampire decks are fun. Yeah.
Yep, yep, yep.
Okay, moving one step up to the sun. You could I would say red white. Red white? Like maybe like an angel deck.
Yeah,
You're into
yeah.
those angel decks that are like
Yes.
$12,000 because all the cards are super rares. Yeah, or whatever.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually have an angel deck, but it's only got like one spendy card, which is like $100 at the time or something. But it was
Okay.
very worth it. Well, it's a very powerful deck, right? But the problem is that it's very boring. It's exceptionally boring. You see it coming, and then it just kind of slowly and casually kind of locks you out of doing anything.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole bunch of protection,
It's
so you
very
can't really
obsessive.
you
It's very
can't.
obsessive. That's an
There you go.
obsessive thing to do, right? That
You're
is very
so right. That's
obsessive.
very OCD. This is
It's
very
so like,
yeah, awesome.
let me tell you
Like
why you've already lost. It's like you've only made two moves. You've already lost the game. Let me tell you why. The rest of the
because
game
it
will
is
be me.
impossible for you to make any moves,
Yeah.
basically, is what it is. I'm doing.
The
Like,
rest of the game will be me telling you how you've lost. Yeah, as we go through the hands. Yeah.
you'll just see like you'll see like one big angel come out, and I'll be like, well, but we're not going to use that one yet because that just causes protection, right? You're like another big angel come out, and you're like, okay, surely he's just going to swing with everything because he can kill me in 2 turns. It's like, no, no, that's not how this deck goes, right?
Look at these
This
beautiful
just
angels coming down. Look at him flying like
this one just makes it
the
impossible for you to
wingspan is
attack the
impressive.
rest of the
Yeah, yeah,
game. And so
yeah.
you're like, oh my goodness, I can't target this one angel, and now I can't attack. And then you're just like, okay, I'm gonna draw another angel and I'm gonna put him on the field. And you're like, holy crap, you could one shot me. It's like, that's not how this deck wins. We'll just keep going.
Yeah, we're gonna let's let it play out. Yeah, we
Like,
want to see. We're very obsessive. We want to see how it plays out, right? Yeah, oh my
yeah,
gosh.
we're
I
focused
feel
on just
personally described and called out here. Okay, yes. Sun people
exactly.
really do be that way for real, for real. And lastly, but not leastly, the stars. I think of at least some blue in
Mhm.
there. When I
Yeah,
think of
probably
blue, I
blue.
think of obviously it's connected to water, but if you think about the
Yep,
strategy behind blue in Magic,
yep,
is very
yeah,
much of controlling,
yep.
influencing, lots of passive effects, lots of, you know, sort of title shifts, if you will, like, oh,
Hmm,
actually,
hmm,
you are no longer in control of said creature. This
hmm,
enchantment now makes it so your lands are like my lands and all these kinds of things, right?
hmm.
Like,
A lot of
all
board control and all these
board
things, very high
control,
level.
hand control, like, or the dreaded mill deck,
Hmm.
wherein the win condition is your opponent now has no more cards in their library. So that's over. They're not quite dead, but the game is over. And that feels very astral to me. Like that feels very
No,
like
for sure.
we've won and we didn't even have to come down even to the solar region. Look at we just won based on purely being here and in this constellation, right, of
It's not uncommon for blue decks just to either literally have no creatures or to have like the minimalist amount of creatures.
yeah, like you get a big squid or something and he's just there to like block attacks basically. Like I eat my
Yeah,
squid,
yeah.
it's that's all
Or
he's
you'll
doing
have
is
like little
yeah.
little like one flying guys. It's like, okay, technically they block, and you're going to use the fact that they can block to trigger a counter spell or something. You know what I mean? Like like the creatures are there specifically to allow you to cast more spells. I mean,
Right.
not every
Yeah.
blue deck, obviously, but that's kind of the canonical, right? The
Right.
monsters are for magic over here. They're not for attacking you with.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, then that seems very astral to me, right? At least in your
Mhm,
system,
mhm.
right? It seems
No, that
very
makes sense.
like,
No, no, I would
yeah.
say, yeah,
Yeah, so I
yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
what we've learned, if anyone is still listening at this point, what we've learned is that the standard or let's say traditional humoric system that might fit onto Elliott's system, but what fits even better is Magic the Gathering, is what we're thinking. We learned
Well,
from this.
Magic the
That's the
Gathering is
bombshell.
really, really flexible. It can fit onto so many. It can
Yeah,
describe so many different systems, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not not
Um,
totally, but it has some
but
patterns.
again, the perfect we don't need to fit perfectly, right? We're just
No,
here
no,
to
exactly. It's
yeah,
just a map, right? Not maps don't have every bit of land.
no,
It's
they
okay,
don't.
and it's okay, by the way. And so this is the other thought. Maybe this is a good closing thought, which is to say all of these systems at the end of the day are just maps of the universe, and not all maps agree, right? Sometimes there's a border of one map and border of the other, and you're just like, hey. this projection is slightly different, or I drew it a
Elliot,
little bit different scale. You know, they don't have
Elliot,
to
are you
line
trying
up.
to say, Elliot, are you trying to say they're maps of meaning? Anyhow,
Get
and
wrecked.
we've lost all of our listeners. That's okay.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
Cool. Well, Elliot, thanks for coming on. Everyone, thanks if you've listened. We appreciate it. We do love you. This is mostly just our thought session that we thought we would record. If you're interested, give us a comment. You do not need to, because I don't really care about YouTube. You're probably seeing this from a tweet. Yeah, if you're interested, you can follow me on Twitter at altphilologe. I can put it in the chat. I do stuff with Pause at TLE Pause. We do stuff over on the Scarlet Thread Society. We do monthly special Doc Brown episodes. We are going to this month in June, or coming up in June for the season of Pentecost. We're going to talk about the logos glossa distinction and how angels are behind every single language. And I have a theory that I've been working on about this, and so that should be fun. We have a back catalog now of, I think, like over a year, Paz told me recently, of episodes. If you're at all interested, Paz does his own stuff, lots of fun things, movie nights, his own standalone projects with people, and then of course, we would I would be remiss if I did not point out that both Paz and Bird go do the monumental Bill Cooper listen through series. So they're doing 40 episodes of that. Go check that out. It's all very woo and spooky. Elliot, anything you want to plug at the end here?
No, nothing. Nothing at the moment. Um, good. Good conversation.
Good talk. Good talk.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your weekend or week whenever this drops. Peace, everyone. Bye bye.
All right. Bye.